Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. If you've had an encounter of your own and would like to speak with me whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. Before we bring on tonight's guest, I want to remind you that the subscription program has started. If you'd like to listen to the show without commercial interruptions, please go to dogmanencountersradio.com and visit the How to Listen page to find out more about becoming a premium member. As you'll see on that page, the subscription fee for becoming a premium member is $2.99 a month. If you want to listen to the show free of charge and don't mind the commercials, the Dogman Encounters YouTube channel is what you're looking for. As always, thanks for listening. Alright, let's bring on tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is Corey Firth. Corey, welcome to the show.
Hi, Vic. How are you?
Doing good, and you?
Very good.
Good. Thanks for being here. Corey, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
I'm 45 years old. I grew up in the mid-coast area of Maine, lived in the woods my whole life, and I was a Boy Scout. I always hunted. I was trapping all the time and camping. I like to travel. I've traveled all across the U.S. I've seen 42 out of the 50 states, and I specifically like Florida and Arizona.
As the listeners will hear, you've lived an exciting life. You're an explorer, you're a treasure hunter, you're a survivalist. Please tell us about those things.
When I was growing up, my mom used to joke that I like to live outdoors more than I like to live inside. I would leave her notes, I would say, I've gone camping and I should be back within 10 to 12 days. And after 12 days, mind you, this is when I'm 8 years old. And she would get worried after 12 days was up. But she always found me. So, yeah, I used to love to camp. I have a great love for nature. I've been a hunter my whole life. And I went to a environmental college, Unity College. It's in Unity, Maine. And that's where I really fell in love with hiking, camping. I've hiked the Appalachian Trail. I actually did it from south to north, which is unusual because most people start in Maine and hike to Georgia, but I did it the other way around. And then after that, I decided that I wanted to see some of the desert, and I moved to a place called Tortilla Flats, which is in the Superstition Mountains.
After hearing about all the strange things that go on in the Superstition Mountains, I can't imagine what kind of a sense of adventure you must have to want to move there.
Well, there's a legend about Jacob Waltz, and Jacob Waltz was a German miner who came to the West in the early 1800s and discovered a huge underground cave of gold. And it was said to have held $200,000 worth of gold in every square foot. And people have been looking for it for years. Some say they found it, but it was actually found and documented in the 1950s by two geologists, but they got lost on their way out and could never find it again. So I worked at Tortilla Flats and hiked, camped, and I loved the area so much that I moved back there in 2014.
With your sense of adventure, I can understand why you'd move back. When was the first time you heard the term Dogman?
The first time that I heard the term Dogman, I think I was searching YouTube and I came across your site and I thought, well, let me rephrase that. The song The Michigan Dogman was probably the first time. And then I looked it up on YouTube to see what it was about, and I wanted to see if it was the animal that I encountered.
And that's when you found out that it was.
I believe it was, yes.
Yeah, it sure seems to be that way. The first night you moved into your new home, something strange happened. Please tell us about that.
Okay. The first night that I got to my new home, there was a pregnant cat that was outside of my house, and I was watching it waddle through the driveway, and all of a sudden a very large black shadow ran across and grabbed it. It happened so fast, and it was so big that I didn't know what to think about it. At first I thought it was a mountain lion, but it wasn't. It had too many dog-like features.
Were you able to get a good enough look at that Dogman to be able to tell how long its fur was? Also, what did its ears look like?
It definitely had pointed ears. Honestly, it had to have been 5.5 to 6 feet long with a very long tail, and it was jet black. It was so dark and so fast, it actually was quite amazing that I could see it as fast as it was.
Well, that's pretty unsettling. I'm sure for some time, anytime you go out at night, that had to be the first thing you would think about.
Yeah, that and the concern was that there was also a large mountain lion in the area, which I did also encounter, but she was pretty friendly towards humans, so I didn't really fear her. But there was a couple of times when I was walking outside and I felt like I was being watched by something. The owner of the property asked me, because I'm a hunter and a trapper, she asked me to try to figure out where the mountain lion was coming through. Well, one night I was sitting in what they call a wash out there, and the washes are basically just runoff from where the rains and the monsoons come through. Well, I was standing there waiting for any animals to come through when I saw 3 figures start to walk down the path. And at first I thought they were probably thieves trying to steal either boat parts or break into houses and loot places. But as they got closer, they looked strange, and they disappeared so quickly that I never really did get a very good look at them. They must have either seen me or smelt me. I think possibly that was the first time that I encountered the Dogman. The second time was much closer.
How close did you say you were to those 3 figures at your closest point?
Well, I was on the beach hiding in the trees waiting for what I thought was going to be a mountain lion. And when I saw them walking down, they were walking upright and they were walking strange, almost, I would almost say like hobbling, almost like a drunk person. And I would say I was probably about 300 yards from them. And I got a little nervous because I had no weapons, and I wasn't really afraid of the mountain lion. That's just par for the course in the desert. So I decided that I was outnumbered, and I went and told my boss, and I said, we need to get some security out here. But we never did see them again.
What kind of lighting conditions did you have that night?
Well, the resort is pretty well lit up. There's only a few areas that don't have overhead halogen lighting, and for the most part, people stick to the paths that have the lights. And there's a few places where there's absolutely no lights there, and yeah, that's probably where the predators hunt. The place is called Apache Lake, and it was a very special place. The story that I was told by the local forest ranger, who I was very good friends with, was that the Apaches weren't allowed to go there. Only the medicine men were. So I found that very interesting because it's a perfect place for survival. You have water, you have mountains for protection. If there's enemies there, you can hide really well. There's caves. And there's a lot of things there. In 1967, there was a person called Jack, I think his last name was Schuster, Jack Schuster. Jack Schuster actually built a resort, and he had 2 children. He had 2 daughters, Monica and Kathy. And after Jack passed, he was buried on the property. And the first night that I actually moved out there and I got the job, I actually got the job on Craigslist, which amazed me. And you have to picture this place is really remote. It's a 2.5-hour drive. There's only one way in and one way out. It's about 2.5 hours through canyons. And when I got there, the first night, I wanted to just sort of walk around and check it out. And people always told me that Jack's spirit was still there. So I ended up walking down to what they call Jack's Cove. It's a little inlet. And while I was down there, I was sitting on a rock with my feet dangling in the water. It was a full moonlit night, and all of a sudden, this huge carp, which is basically a large sunfish, if you don't know what a carp is, came out of the water, and as strange as it sounds, I swear it looked me right in the eye, and the thing had to have weighed 100 pounds. Needless to say, I kind of felt like Jack's spirit was welcoming me to the property. But I still took my toes out of the water.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. That'd be quite the experience.
Oh yeah, that fish was huge and it could easily have drowned me.
Oh, I'll bet it could have. When you had the encounter we're about to talk about now, Corey, you were working at a resort. What can you tell us about the resort, and what can you tell us about the encounter you had?
The resort is brand new. It's leased off the federal government Bureau of Land Management. And it's been owned by one family since the 1970s. It's 2.5 hours from any store, any gas station. It's very, very remote. It's a very, very deep lake. It's surrounded by canyons. It's absolutely beautiful. It has a marina. It has 3 hotels. It has a restaurant, a full bar, and a playground. And also it has places where you can store your boats and wet slips and dry slips. They pay you every 2 weeks. It was a great job. One thing they do is they have events there. They have a music festival that happens every year. They have NA and CA events that also happen there, AA events. But the event where my encounter happened was called the Johnson Memorial. And it's been going on for 15 or 20 years at this point. They're lots of fun, and we look forward to seeing them every year. Well, one night after working in the restaurant, I waited tables and I bartended and I did a lot of other things. I was sort of a jack of all trades there, if you will. I went home and me and a friend sat around and we were playing guitar and just actually they were still cooking at, I think this was around 2 or 3 in the morning. Well, it was about 3 o'clock. And we were eating, I think it was steaks and sausages, and they were really good people. Me and my friend were playing guitar, and he had to work the next day. I was off. So everyone started calling it a night, and it started quieting down. It was a moonlit night, and I just didn't feel like going to bed. The great thing about this resort is that there's walking trails everywhere. So I decided to go for a walk, but I didn't get very far. I had an efficiency apartment underneath one of the hotels, and I was walking up towards the Marina restaurant when I passed through the parking lot that's next door to my apartment, and I heard all kinds of commotion. I was actually looking over, and I actually saw this big white van. It was violently shaking, and I thought, what's going on here? I better check, because part of our job is security, too. So I started walking over, and I saw it took a while for my mind to process it. I saw what first looked like a very, very large guy wearing a jacket that would be something like a fur coat or something. Well, I got a little bit closer because it was becoming apparent to me that this person didn't own the vehicle. So I thought possibly they were trying to steal the vehicle. We've had vehicles stolen there. Or they were robbing them. So I got a little bit closer, and then I hesitated because I realized that the jacket wasn't a jacket at all. It was actual hair. At that point, I think what I would call a dogman smelled me because his head turned and cocked. He never actually turned his face so I could see it. But I could see his arms and his paws, and the best description I've heard is the raccoon hands. They really did look to me like they were human hands, but they had long nails. I will not forget that. And I did see one eye, and it was red. I took another step a little bit closer just to make sure that I wasn't mistaken, because I thought maybe it was two people and I was misinterpreting the situation. So I actually yelled, "Hey, is that your van, and what are you doing?" And that's when it growled at me. I knew immediately that it wasn't a cinnamon bear, because there's another animal in the desert called a cinnamon bear. But this was upright on two legs, and it was literally digging through the van, and it was throwing stuff behind it. At that point, I realized that I was encountering something that I had never, ever heard of or seen before. It wasn't a javelina, it wasn't a cinnamon bear, and it wasn't a mountain lion for sure. And so it growled at me again, and I stopped in my tracks at that point. And I decided, well, I guess tonight's not a great night for a walk. So I started to back up, and I ran from my apartment and locked the door. That was pretty much my encounter.
After you had that encounter, who was the first person you told about it?
I told the owners about it, but I didn't tell them that I thought that it was a dogman. I told them, and here's the strange thing. The van was gone in the morning by like 6:30 in the morning. Those people packed up and left, and they must have been pretty scared because most people hang around all day. It's a beautiful spot. So I went up and I told my boss, I said, listen, I was out for a walk last night and I saw somebody rifling through somebody's van. and they called the police, but nothing really became of it because the van had already left. They left so early. They must have been frightened because I'm not really sure what happened to the van, but I do remember seeing just before I ran off scratch marks on the side of it. I assumed it was probably from a car accident, or it's pretty easy to scratch your vehicle going down. These roads are narrow and there's lots of sharp, jagged rocks, but now that I think about it, I think probably this thing was trying to open the door and damage the vehicle.
I wonder if the people who owned that van weren't watching from a distance, and after that Dogman took off, they got into the van and headed out themselves.
You know what? That's possible because now that you mention it, there's an upper and a lower parking lot, and the van was in the lower parking lot, and the upper parking lot overlooks the lower parking lot. And there was a little dog. I do remember that it came out and it was barking at this thing, and then it just ran off. So I think it realized that it was not a person, and that probably did bring out the owners, and they probably saw something that they couldn't explain.
Yeah, that just might be how it went down. Through all this, were you able to see its ears?
Yeah, I could see the ears. The best description I have heard is German Shepherd. I never saw a snout, which speaks to its intelligence, because when I yelled, "Hey, what are you doing?" it knew better than to turn and look at me and let me see its face. It actually cocked its head, and I could see teeth, too, when it growled at me. I didn't see them very well, but it was clearly canine teeth. I saw a red eye, and I saw ears that were German Shepherd-like. And I gotta tell you, the van was a 350 heavy-duty van, and it had a side door that opened. And this Dogman absolutely filled that side door, and that had to have been at least 4 feet wide.
Wow, if it filled up that side door like that, then yeah, it wasn't exactly a small specimen. I think you indirectly answered this question already from what you just said, but could you tell what color it was?
It was dark colored, but it also had orange, reddish hair, too. But that could have been the fluorescent color, because the parking lots are pretty well lit up. I'm curious as to why it picked this van, whether there was food in there or what exactly it was doing.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like typical Dogman behavior, but you never do know what they're going to do. Was that van parked by itself or around other vehicles?
No, it was parked next to several other vehicles with boats attached to them, because it's a popular lake. Everybody brings their boats out there. One thing I did happen to think about is that the parking lot that it was in, there is a natural arroyo that leads right up to it. So it would be really easy for an animal, and I used to see the deer and the javelina cross there all the time. It's about 50 feet from the parking lot to the water's edge. And then from the parking lot, it's only about 20 feet to the wilderness. This property is 88 acres, and it's spread out quite a bit. The restaurant's on top of the hill. The marina is at the bottom of the hill. The parking and tenting sites are next to the marina. And then you have the wet slips, which are by Jack's Cove. Yeah, so if that gives you an idea, and almost everything is walking uphill and doing circles. Most of these trails and places can be reached by circular roads. So you can take one path to one place and then hop on another circular path and reach another one, but they are pretty well spread out. The distance from the marina to the restaurant is probably about 800 yards. So it's a pretty good sized resort. And there's a lot of beach, and there's a lot of game there too. I would always wake up in the morning and I would see either javelina or deer or quail walking to the water to get a drink. So I assume that's what attracted it.
It does sound like a really nice place to go. How far were you from any place of safety like a building when you saw that Dogman?
Oh, I wasn't very far at all. I was actually still on the walking path that went to my apartment. 200 feet, 250 feet. It was very close, which is what shocked me the most. But obviously these things are not at all afraid of humans, because I'm pretty sure that they could do whatever they wanted to us. I mean, he had to weigh 450 pounds.
You said you're about 200 to 250 feet away from your apartment. If that Dogman had decided to get nasty, that might as well have been a mile.
Yep. Yes, it would have. But I'm an avid outdoorsman. I can tell when an animal is going to attack or if it's just warning me off. It was just warning me off. I know it's human nature and it's crazy, but I wanted to get closer to look at this thing. And I just knew that if I did that, that it would attack me.
Were any other people around when this happened?
I don't think so, but after I mentioned the dog and how fast those people left, it is possible that there was somebody above that looked down and saw this thing. I never saw them because my eyes were transfixed on it. Obviously, I've listened to several of the shows. I skip around a little bit, so I've listened to like 50 through 125, but I'm still trying to listen to like the 40s and stuff. But I feel like you're right. I feel like maybe somebody was above and saw this thing, and they decided in the morning that they would never come back. But you know, there are things out there that are unexplainable, and you can't live your life in fear of what might happen and what might not happen, because you're gonna end up secluded and never having any adventures or exploring, which is my passion. I'm a wilderness guide, and I am a mountaineer. I like to cave, and I've had several other incidents that don't even include Dogman. So that place is clearly a magical spot, because I believe that there's other things out there that man has never seen, and it's about 600,000 acres of mountainous terrain, and if you don't know where water is and you don't have enough water, you're not making it back out. Food isn't that hard to find. Water, pretty hard to find.
Did you ever try to find out if any other Dogman encounters happened in that area?
I haven't heard anything about that, but I know just before I moved out to Arizona, before my Dogman encounter, that there was another major Sasquatch sighting, and it was all over the news. A lot of people were calling it a hoax, but I knew the people, and they told me, they were like, this was no hunter in a ghillie suit. They were like, this was a Sasquatch. And I've known these people for years. They wouldn't make up something like that. They're not interested in the public eye or anything like that. And they got some great pictures, too. It happened in Turner, Maine. And it literally happened after I left.
Yeah, sounds like that area's got a lot of activity. After you caught that dogman rifling through that van, how much work did you put into researching dogmen?
Well, let's see. That was at Johnson Memorial. I tried to track it. And for about another week after that happened, I tried to track it. And one night, the same thing happened to me. There was a game trail that was behind the resort. And I was sitting up there, and I was waiting to see if I could see this thing again. Because an animal that big, even if they are stealthy, they have to break branches. This one was at least 400 pounds. But when I was on the trail, something growled at me again, and I know it was the same creature. There's rumors that the Mayan grave site is still being protected by ancient Indian spirits, and that some of them actually still live and continue to live up there. I never saw any actual Indians, but I did go to the Mayan grave site. The legend is, and I hope everyone takes this to heart, the legend is that if you remove a rock or any type of memorabilia from the Superstition Mountains, you will have bad luck. And that is the truth.
Well, that's a scary thought. You told me that the Mayan burial site isn't all that far from that resort. Do you know exactly how far it is?
It is about a 45-minute walk.
Ooh, that's not that far. That's about 3 miles then.
It's not even quite that far, but it's uphill.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, that's really close. Were there ever any other times in your life when you think there might have been a dogman near you?
There's only one other thing I can think of, and I was a child, and I honestly couldn't tell you whether it was a dream or whether I actually saw this thing. I woke up in the middle of the night, and we had a big picture window, and this is in Maine. I looked out by our front lawn, and there was a giant gray. I didn't call them dogmen at that point. I thought it was a werewolf. This one was much larger than the one that I saw in Arizona. It was probably a good 10 feet tall. And I saw that one very good. So I don't know whether or not it was my imagination, because it's sounding like some of these are being almost like a guardian angel, because if they wanted to hurt us, they sure could. Because the one that I saw in Arizona, the claws on it would rip someone open no problem. Again, I didn't really see the face. It knew to keep it hidden from me, and when it growled, I knew in my own mind if I had stepped forward that it would have turned around, and then I wouldn't have stood a chance because it would have outrun me, even at 200 feet.
I'm so glad you realized that. How sure are you that you weren't dreaming when you looked out that front window and saw that 10-foot werewolf in the front yard that night?
It's very hard to be sure that I wasn't sleeping, because I had gotten up to go to the bathroom. I would say probably 7 or 8 years old. We lived in a ranch house, and it overlooked a really big green grass lawn, and it is possible that it wasn't a dream. I've got to be honest. It was probably the most impressive creature I've ever seen, and I looked at it, and it looked at me, and I've heard other people say this, but it almost looked like it smiled at me. And it took one giant leap, and I would say it covered a good 20 or 30 feet in that leap. It was a huge animal. I would like to believe that it wasn't a dream.
Dogmen bigger than that have been reported by very credible eyewitnesses, so I guess we'll never know.
My friend once told me that he thought that I had some type of hidden talent, and this is my best friend telling me this. He thought that I was able to find and call animals. I don't know if there's a name for that or not, but he's always said that. The first day that we went off to college, I told him about a giant moose that had literally walked right by me. It actually almost had to step over me. He didn't believe me, and when we got in my car and drove up the road, the moose was coming out of a fog bank in the field. He's like, "Is that the moose you saw?" And I said, "Yeah, it walked right by me." And he's like, "How do you do that?" And I said, I don't know. I kind of feel like nature and I are connected somehow. A lot of people say that some empaths can communicate with the animals. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I would love to believe that.
Well, it does make you wonder if there's something to that or not. Are the Dogman encounters we've been talking about tonight the reason why you left that area?
No, actually, the reason I left that area is I found another job, but who's to say I won't see another one, because I'm in the Adirondacks now. And I know that, what's the name of the North American Dogman Association? Is that right?
North American Dogman Project.
Yes. They're in Pennsylvania, right?
Well, they have several investigators in Pennsylvania from what I understand, but no, they're not based in Pennsylvania. They're based out of Ohio.
Okay, because I'm at the foot of the Adirondacks, and I was listening to one of your shows, and I have been to this area that it was the encounter where the people, some of them were military and some of them were firefighters, and there were two brothers, and they were at a campsite that I go to all the time. In fact, I'm intending on going up there again. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's the episode where this actually happened in upstate New York. I can't remember the number of that episode, but yeah, it was maybe 3-4 weeks ago.
Oh, it was that recent?
Yeah, it was pretty recent. The eyewitness's name is Tyler, I believe.
I'm pretty sure that's the exact spot that I'm going camping, because I've been dying to get up there. And it makes perfect sense they would be up there, because there are tons of animals and wildlife up there, and it's very remote. I don't think they dislike people. I think they just want to try to keep their species secret so that they're not hunted, because people would love to try to go out and hunt these things. They're foolish.
Yeah, that would be a mistake. And they have attacked people, so that says everything that we need to know about whether they're safe to be around or not.
Yeah, I'm writing a story specifically about what happened to me with the Sasquatch. It's just going to be a short story. I actually have the painting all done. I'm trying to promote my artwork, and I like to paint artwork that has cryptids in it, so I wanted to email you some, and I'd love to have some people give me some feedback.
That sounds good. If you get those sent to me, I'll post those on the YouTube version of the show so the listeners can check them out.
Yeah, the Sasquatch came out really good. The Dogman is still a work in progress.
Oh, that's all right. No, I think they just would love to see them in the first place. Well, Corey, it's about time for us to get out of here. Before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, I wanted to say, I know I've mentioned the place, it's Apache Lake Marina and Resort, but please respect those people and don't expect to go up there and have some type of cryptic encounter, because this could have just been a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and I just would like people to respect them and the area. And also remember, there's an old Apache curse that if you remove something from the Superstition Mountains, you will have bad luck. So just beware of that.
Thanks again so much for coming on the show tonight, Corey. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you, Vic. I really had a great time.
Oh, it's been great talking with you. Have a great night, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.